Welcome to the Digital Diary. This is episode number 2. And number 2 has sprung through inspiration via a reel that I saw today. And this reel has ignited a desire for me to share some insight, my opinion on this topic of what I've seen via this reel. So this reel was all about new age dating, and there's something about it that made my blood boil, I'm not going to lie. The nature of this reel was speaking directly around manipulating someone else to like you. There's nothing more that pushes my buttons than someone trying to manipulate their way through a situation for their own gains. If you've listened to any of my previous episodes, you will definitely have tuned into that and will understand that it's one of my pain points and I just don't like it. So I'm going to call that shit out here today. And this reel bugs me so much because basically the tactics that this person is trying to create some education around is basically manipulating the person via activating trauma with their past, their childhoods, whatever. But it's an activation of trauma through manipulation to try and get that person to be with you. And just hear those words, right? When we look at something of that nature and put it into black and white context like that, it's like, why the fuck would you want to try and manipulate another human via activating their wounding to like you? If anybody's operating on that manner, that is nothing but a reflection of the person's own inadequacy, insecurity, and scarcity mindset. Now, I'm not saying that you step into these dynamics and reveal everything about yourself on the first date. Like, why also would we do that? That's not healthy either. But it does spring to me this clarification around a lack of education on how to navigate interpersonal dynamics. You know, it's same when you have a child, you don't get a manual and you don't get told how to navigate being a parent. And every single one of us has some sort of wounding. Even if you had the shiniest white picket fence upbringing, everybody has an interrelational wounding of some sort. And if you have taken time alone intentionally, as in intentionally not dated, celibacy, not responding to no one's DMs, like really took the reins of your own self-control and the intention to really tap into the isness of who you are, what your natural triggers are in the environment of life. If you don't know what they are, then you're going to very easily be swayed and manipulated when you get into these dynamics. This is what I'm preaching here, guys and girls. Taking that time to know who you are is fundamental in this day and age, especially when there's so much content being shared with manipulative shit like that. And then obviously once I've clicked onto that, then the algorithm starts to get fed. So I was like, all right, okay, I'm curious now. I'm going to see what else is out there. Just for my own curiosity to see what's happening in this field of dating dynamics. And there was another one that I saw, and it was a guy speaking out to other guys about how to keep the girl hooked. It just makes me cringe so much when I say that, because why on earth would you want to have a dynamic that is operated through intentional manipulation? Again, I just think a lot of these modern day dating coaches and tactics and whatever you want to call it is literally based on manipulation. What the actual fuck? This is 2026, guys. I'm not saying that you don't learn about the other species. Understanding male psychology is very important. So is understanding female psychology, biology, and what happens when we come into these very beautiful, sacred dynamics. And this is why seeing content like this really pisses me off, because again, we're in this day and age where connections seem to be disposable. Oh, you don't like that one? Okay, sound, let's go on to the next. And, you know, if that's your vibe, if you actually don't have the capacity to grow roots and want to go deep with someone, stay shallow, honey. You do your thing. But, you know, that's only going to get you somewhere, because it's like, how far can that get you when it's only surface level? To me, I can use the analogy of things like sweets or taking cocaine, for example, two incredibly addictive sources that people use for that quick fix high, right? But we all know what happens when we have a sugar crash. And if you've ever connected with cocaine in your party days, you know what happens when the crash drops. There's either a desire for more and you keep going and trying to get that hit and that high again, or you're going to come down like a ton of bricks, baby. Whether that is through an intense breakout, bloating, IBS, like you somatically get and mentally, emotionally get a very uncomfortable crash from that. And I kind of see these dynamics obviously not as close to that in relation, but you know, if we're going to use dopamine and biology as a reference point, then I think we can quite closely link it to that. If you're not stepping into these dynamics with the intention of, I'm here to help, not hinder, and I want to heal, not re-traumatize, you shouldn't be dating. Honestly, you need to be locking up and shutting up and staying away from the opposite sex, because, or the same sex, depending on what your vibe is, because it's unfair to bleed out your shit on someone else, especially if you don't have a practice of self-awareness and are devoted to the path of leveling up, you know, regulate, elevate. I think if you've got a practice of making sure that you got you and your container is strong as you are, and understanding that when someone else comes into your life, you are both co-creating and birthing effectively another entity. And if you haven't got the minerals to grow roots, go deep and hold the other in reverence and respect, then you don't deserve to move in these realms, these sacred realms, these beautiful, beautiful, unfolding dynamics. And obviously, the deeper that you go, the more that gets revealed, if the dynamic's healthy. I personally like to move at a slow and a sober rate, because that's what works best for me. I don't like going headfirst into these types of dynamics, because I think a lot can get blurred in the early days. And I certainly don't position myself as a low-hanging fruit either. Babe, I'm right at the top of that tree, shining in the sunlight, and I don't make it easy. I'm just gonna say, because, and that's not from a gamey perspective, that's from having self-respect and not just allowing someone to come into my space so freely and so easily, because I've done a lot of work to get to where I am here today, and to broadcast this very beautiful message with such clarity, because I'm speaking from this space of clarity of self-awareness and self-knowledge, and this pathway that I'm devoted to. It's always going to have layers. There's always tweaks within my own experience. Not that I am saying by any means that I am striving for any perfection state. All I know is that every single human that walks this planet is imperfect, and we've all got our own woundings and scars and past, and not everybody has the capacity to be able to be like, no, I want a better life for myself. I know that this is how my past has shaped me and this is how I want to do better. And absolute respect for you if you are listening to this right now and that is your vibe. Because it takes an immense amount of courage and strength to deviate away from a quote unquote well-known path that is actually nothing but, because that's causing you nothing but harm and surface level, shallow experiences. But again, I think there's a lot to be said about this day and age where we have so much accessible information, and if we wanted, people at our fingertips through dating apps, social media, whatever. Having that deviation away from that instant access, instant validation, instant gratification path, that's where you start to really reap the fruit of that disciplined labor of being like, no, actually, I don't follow this crowd and I don't follow the societal matrix that wants me trapped and enslaved and disconnected and dabbling in shallow level relationships. Like, but also if that's your thing, like, you go do that if that's what makes you feel comfortable. But I'm telling you now, wait until you get to 50. Wait until you get to 50 and see how that pathway has ripened for you. Because I'm sitting here saying at 36, how I can see how there's other fellow humans that I know who have continued to live in the exact same way, partying all weekend, like fucking around with other women or other men, or just not taking their path seriously and their well-being seriously and their self-respect seriously. I see them out and about. And again, this isn't me saying I'm holier than thou and that my decisions are better than others. I'm just giving clear perspective. I feel like a little bit of a time traveler being able to relay this information, especially if you're younger and you're listening to this. Like, if you do continue to fuck about into your 30s and you aren't getting clear with where it is that you want to go, and it doesn't have to be like a definitive direction. It's I just want to just get better. I just want to get better for me and feel good for me. And then my kids can also reap the fruits of that. And so can my family, and so can my friends and my business, and la, 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 la. Because it's not just the one thing that is affected by your level up. It's every single living creature that is in your orbit. And that is the greatest gift that we can give to our people, is our own level up. But anyway, like I was saying, when I see the people who haven't stopped and who continue to like fuck about with drugs and all the things, whoa, it looks like they've aged by about 15 years, and it makes me feel sad because, I've known them for a long time and I'm like, you are such a beautiful human and you just still feel like you need to just fuck about. Wow. It's sad, it really is, but it's very eye-opening for me to honor and acknowledge the hard times that have come my way since I've deviated away from the 20-year-old fuck about find out self. And it hasn't been easy at times, but I'm telling you now, I sit here with reverence and humility actually in my heart for the life that has been prior to now, and the ripeness that I sit in as the woman that I am today. And a lot of that, again, has come down to being on my own, intentional celibacy, and being really intentional about who I let into my space, how I assert my boundaries, how I hold my standards, where's my bandwidth? We can learn a lot about ourselves and other people in these dynamics. And this is why I believe that they are sacred and they should be held in reverence as such. So I'm going to say, it's 2026. Fuck dating apps. Fuck holding the other sex or same sex, whatever your vibe is, as the center of your world, and start really feeding into what is ripe, real, ready, inspires, drives, lifts you, your spirit, your life, your direction. And know that everything is going to be okay. And, it's good to get to a mindset of, if I'm single for the rest of my life, I'd be happy with that. And also, when someone does come into your life and they are actually supportive of you and you see your life getting better with them in it, that's also a beautiful thing too. That's deserves to be respected and held in reverence too. So, moral of the story: don't follow the bullshit dating tactics, techniques, coaching, whatever you want to call it, that you see on social media. Just remember that platform is free and there are billions of users that are on that platform, not to mention billions of bot accounts that are being run by AI. And you cannot take everything that you see as literal, because we're also unique and we have our own unique imprint, and interpersonal relationships are sacred and should be treated as such. Have a good day.